Hello and welcome to the Voiro podcast, season 4, episode 6. With me as always is Kavita Shenoy, founder and CEO of Voiro. Kavita, good morning.
Good morning. I've just come back from Delhi and you've just come back from Bombay. How is it?
Yeah, it was interesting and there was also high drama on my flight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you messaged us about this. What happened?
Yeah, so the Indian aviation ecosystem seems to have been hit by a lot of drama mid-air recently. And I was hoping that I was not
Going to be a part
adjacent to one of those, but I was adjacent to some drama where the person sitting next to me was a staunch vegetarian and the person sitting on the other side of her was
a
non-vegetarian who ordered something meaty to eat. And as with most of my flight dramas, I was stuck in the window seat. And it was after a very, very, very long and tiring day. And I went, of course, to my go-to comfort meal, which was instant noodles. And so I was busy eating instant noodles. And this guy was busy eating his chicken sandwiches, whatever. And she was so upset by the fact that this guy was not eating vegetarian food that she started gagging and she almost threw up. And then she made a fuss. She was like, he's eating non-vegetarian food. And he's just like, would you like to go to the restroom? And they both summoned the stewardess and I was busy eating my
watching
noodles,
the show.
watching this. Because
dinner and show.
Not because I was grabbing popcorn to watch it. I was wondering if I would be impacted by this because she was legitimately about to throw up. She had her sari covering her face and she's like, and this guy at one point put his hand up and he's like, you have to change my seat. And so they reseated him. And so he got away from the situation.
But
then she
Miss
went
Pukey
on.
was still next to you.
She was still next to me.
Oh, no.
And then she looked at me and then she said, can you believe he was eating non-vegetarian food? I was just like, people eat whatever they want to eat. Like, what's your problem?
Did you say that to her?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So she didn't get my support, which upset her further.
Oh my
so
God.
now I have a person who's upset also at me and still nauseous. And then I called the stewardess and I'm just like, you got to get her away from me, please. But I said it in a nice way. I said, can you help her? Can you get her some medication? Can you please take her to the restroom? I asked and finally they reseated her.
Oh, good.
And
So you
put
had
her
nobody next to
me.
you?
I had nobody next to me.
Amazing. At least you had place on your flight. My flight was packed back from Delhi. It was absolutely packed.
Isn't Delhi raining?
It was muggy. It wasn't as sunny as it, but it was muggy. It was muggy and it was Delhi. Delhi, I land in Delhi and I just want to shoot people or fight with people or something, that this aggressiveness comes out in me where I'm just like, bring it on. Just bring it on. And nobody has done anything to me. It's just in the air. Like, I'm just ready.
I land in Goa and I'm suddenly like, hey,
Yes.
life is just spectacular.
It's true.
So I land in Bombay and I'm in a hurry. It's like, get out of my way. Who are these people sharing the elevator with me? Like, what do they think?
Every city has a vibe. But Bangalore, just come back to just calm nothing. Just be. Just float around. Just be happy. Yeah. Speaking of floating around and being happy and going places, events are back. We last time spoke about CapSat.
About CapSat.
You had something on the list today to speak about.
Yeah, you remember when we first started this podcast, we talked about ATS London and someone wrote in and said, what's ATS?
What is ATS?
What's
With
ATS?
a terrible pronunciation.
Listen, I cannot distance myself from this accent that I have. And so ATS London happened again, which reminds me.
What does ATS stand for?
I don't know. I have tried to look for it. It is Exchange Wire's signature event, but I still don't know what it stands for.
Okay, if Exchange Wire, if you're listening to this, tell us what ATS stands for.
Please tell us.
Alpha Tango Sugar.
Yeah, maybe. What I do know is that it is an event just before Cannes, and pints of beer flow very freely at ATS, I'm told.
As there's wine at the Riviera.
There we go. So there's clearly a...
Why are we not there? Every year we miss it.
I don't know. I'm drinking... At least you're drinking good coffee.
Oh, I had some excellent coffee today. Somebody asked me, is it Irish? Because they said, oh my God, this coffee is excellent. But it's great. It's great
I'm
coffee.
drinking coffee from this machine outside, which I need to fix right after
this meeting. It's radioactive.
But ATS London is of interest to us for several reasons. One, it kind of was the first thing we spoke about on this podcast, which reminds me, we must be about a year old as a podcast.
Really? Are we a year old?
If I'm not mistaken.
I need a party.
Maybe more than a year old? We didn't
What?
celebrate?
We didn't celebrate? This is very unusual.
This is terrible.
I need a repeat of what they get in ATS as beer and the French Riviera wine.
I dish this coffee right now.
I think so.
Proceed.
You should have told me in the morning.
2, we are going to be at ATS Singapore.
Yes.
Later this year in October. We're registered and we're ready. So Exchange Wire, Lindsay Roundtree, Kieran O'Kane, if you're listening, we're on our way. So here are some things that came out of ATS that I thought might be interest to us. And I thought let's agree and maybe disagree as Lena.
I'm also going to try and compare it to
Cannes?
What's come out of Cannes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I sent you that article just before.
Yes,
right?
I scanned through it, but I bookmarked it to read it again because, like you mentioned, Brian Morrissey seems to be a wizard with words.
With words, yes. I have giggled through this entire
Yeah.
article and I've lived the Cannes experience through his
so
words.
I need to read it again. A conference like Cannes has to be written about well. You cannot only when I read everything about ATS, all I hear about is the drinking and the beer and and the fun.
The side stories.
Yeah. So the first theme that seems to have been all over ATS London is sustainability. And I've heard mixed reviews of this topic across conferences because obviously it's becoming a thing. Decarbonization of the media supply chain, of bid streams, of the programmatic ecosystem, keeping a track on carbon emissions. There are products like Net Zero and Scope 3 that help you measure. There's products like Good Loop.
Good Loop was the first on the scene, right?
Yes, they help you sort of put your money to good use, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they're a green or sustainability solve, but I think they're also a very interesting product. And I go back to IBC last year where you and I were on a panel about sustainability, where the first question in the room was, what do you think of sustainability? And everybody said green, eco, recycle. And the lady who was running the panel, she said, why don't any of you say profits? She said companies must be sustainable in order to continue to exist, in order to be good to the environment. Why is that why is the P word so poorly?
Why is profits not part of our sustainability conversation? Put your money to good use.
Yes. But I remember at ATS Singapore last year, there was a panel where one of the folks from MediaCorp was asked point blank, would your advertisers spend money for sustainability at the cost of return on ad spends? And he said no.
But why should that be? Yeah. Why should you be spent? Why should it be? Why are we choosing between sustainability and
I'll tell you. I remember when I lived in Dallas, Texas, I had an electricity provider who gave me two choices. This is a cost per unit, or this is a higher cost per unit if you're willing to source electricity from a solar source.
Right, okay.
So the supply chain is more expensive, therefore. So it was actually a choice. And you're like, well, do I want a higher electricity bill just to be comfortable with the fact that the money comes from a green source? And that's why.
Something to think about.
Yeah. But the interesting tidbit at ATS was the fact that an unnamed CPG brand cut programmatic spend by 40% to hit sustainability targets.
For just that year?
Execution was pushed via an ad server integration using an IO directly in order to achieve this. And the CMO got a bonus. A big shift in how programmatic works is definitely coming because sustainability bonuses for CMOs are accelerating this.
It is so counterintuitive because everybody in India now is trying to move towards being far more indirect. But it's also a indirect proportion to the quantity of ad revenue, right? And India is not really there yet in terms of the quantum, the volume of ad revenue in comparison, say, to
high supply, low yield market.
Oh man, I tell you, don't we know it? But moving back to a direct IO, if that's sustainable and if that's where developed markets are going, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Which means people and it means different types of tech and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it also means making up your mind.
How so?
Man, you just book your stuff well in advance.
Yes.
And not keep changing your mind and running.
So there is an apparent loss of real-time control.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is
so
scary.
It's also questions, why do you need real-time control? Are you getting that kind of an uplift with this kind of real-time control? Are you just keeping yourself busy but not output-oriented? Right? I mean, you can be busy. You're going to be busy constantly toggling with your campaigns and figuring out what to do next. But is it really giving you that kind of uplift that you really need to be on it all this time?
So Rob Beeler of Beeler Tech was at ATS and he conducted a master class, which was titled, "Is Direct Making a Comeback?" And his answer was yes. But he got into the why, and then he, on his own podcast, went into something he described as a mousetrap that does not exist. His take on direct is that it still has a giant position in its ability to do stuff like this. But for a decade now, or more than a decade, all the technology minds of the world that focused on the advertising and MarTech space invested all that time to compound progress on the programmatic side. Nobody actually spent that time on the direct side, and there is no mousetrap that is attracting money as almost like a slam dunk. And he believes that that is the inflection point that we're at. So he conducted this entire session where he said direct is making a huge comeback because some of the best technology minds in the world, like the ones we have at Voiro, are investing their efforts in ensuring that direct gets its fair shake.
Interesting.
So the economics makes sense. The technology attention is there. And on the other side, there are tailwinds because of disintermediation on the programmatic side. So I think we're onto something.
Yeah. So in Brian Morrissey's newsletter as well, he echoes the same thing at Cannes, where he says programmatic reality check is one of the themes that were happening over there, where SPO and sustainability highlight all the hands are in that particular pot. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make sure that there is supply path optimization that go hand in hand with sustainability, because you're not trying to get that same impression with 5 different types of demand side platforms, right? So, which also begs the difference between what is supply path optimization and how is it different from direct sales at the end of the day. Maybe it's just tech in between, it's tech enabled, but it is going to be direct sales.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
point
there
one is in line with ATS and Cannes. That's
each of
what
them are one
that's
and
what-
one.
One and one. Okay. Point number 2, and I got this from the First Party Capital newsletter. Attention is going to underpin a lot of what we do going forward. Attention as a possible measurement currency is undoubtedly the evolution of verification as a key proxy for the efficacy of advertising spend. Every time I've heard or thought about attention being used as a metric, I immediately get scared because I think that my phone is going to like just watch me without my consent. That's the natural sentiment for me. I spent some time looking at 2.
Or like Anil gets afraid of his CTV taking over his entire house, which is why he's not upgrading.
Yeah, but he did drop by my house the other day and spent a lot of time like analyzing every corner of my TV. He tried to look behind the TV.
Is he impressed?
Well, you know that frame TV, there is no behind, right? It's
Yeah.
flat up against the wall.
Correct.
So
That
he
little
couldn't.
thin little wire.
Yeah. But he looked at it and he's like, yeah, this is nice.
He's gonna get it.
Like,
I want some money on this. Like by when?
or I think like that haircut was thrust upon him. We just make him do it. Just take him to the
I
shop.
think so. Have
You know,
ordered
Anil
any?
and stores, he has a tendency to get upsold. All we
He
have to do
can't.
is
He
take him
can't
into
take.
the
He
store.
can't. He can't say no to a good
Yeah, he
salesman.
can't.
He just can't.
Can't. So I was looking at 2 products, Lumen and Entropic Tech from Bangalore, India. I was trying to figure out how they handle attention. It looks like both of them work on very, very, very large panels, 50, 60 million people, where effectively what they're doing is facial tracking and eye tracking as a technology, but using that and integrating that into the buying ecosystem, into the buying process.
Cycle.
There's a new metric which I had not heard of. I don't know if you heard of this, called attention per impression.
Wow, I have never.
It's what Lumen basically measures and use that to help you configure the right campaign, the right targeting, the right channel.
So what is it again?
Attention per impression.
What does that mean?
For me, it sounds like it's a subset of an impression, almost like viewable impressions versus actual impressions. When Moat came around, effectively what they did is they took impressions and qualified them as viewable and not viewable. For me, attention per impression seems to be a metric on a similar scale, where using eye tracking technology, but not real time, not for everybody, right? It's
From a sample.
consent based, but from a large enough sample, which for me is. I
It's
don't know.
okay. I mean,
don't
at least we know whether the ad was attractive enough or not to actually catch your attention.
know.
So
Yes,
to spend some
but
time on it.
I'm wary of panels. I'm very wary of panels. I mean, they've obviously worked for decades with the Nielsen's of the world. What Entropic is doing is different. They're not doing it for the purpose of media measurement. They're doing it for the purpose of qualitative research. That's maybe somewhat different. And I didn't know that they track 50 to 60 different facial movements as you respond
Amazing.
to anything. And they basically help you understand where the attention was spent and if the attention was given. And where can be nowhere, the brand ambassador, the product itself, a specific timestamp, or something else entirely. But they effectively give that data back to you as part of a qualitative funnel measurement.
Interesting.
But this obviously involves a lot of AI and machine learning. So it looks like the shift is towards contextual attention, SDA, anything that's going to help us come out of this cookie.
Yeah. So in Cannes, the whole technology refrain that was there was about it flattening the entire creative process. It's bringing efficiency into play, but are we going to be? Is there going to be a deluge or a mountain of, AI generated nonsense after a point? You're just like slammed with a whole bunch of stuff. Like when short video came out, we had to really trawl through some really crappy stuff to get to our set of influences that we have today.
I watch a lot of short videos on my CTV, by the way. It
Really?
occupies a slim part of the screen.
What are you saying? I've never heard that. I don't do that.
I open the YouTube app,
Okay.
and I just watch shorts on the big screen.
It doesn't open up into the full screen. It's only a
So
vertical
it
video.
doesn't occupy the width of the screen, but it occupies the height because of the aspect
So at least
ratio.
do they have that little veneer at the back so that it's not
No.
just a black?
It's
You
just
have black panels?
Just black panels
Wow.
on either side.
You're really into short videos then.
I am. And I've
Can you
said
turn
this,
the TV and will the aspect ratio change?
pretty
now?
sure my wife may not appreciate that. But yeah, and I was telling someone the other day, all my Instagram reels and my YouTube shorts are celebrities at airports. For some reason, the algorithms think that that's what I'm interested in, and I watch it.
And you do it in real life.
Yes.
Because you're the only one amongst us when we get out into the airport. You're like, hey, look, that's that dude. And we're like, who? And you're telling us the background story of who this person is. Unlike an Anil who walks up to somebody and says, aren't you infamous?
Yeah. And you are either famous or infamous, but you're something.
You're something.
I've seen him do that. But yeah, who's the biggest celebrity you've spotted in the wild?
In the wild, no one.
No one.
No one.
You've met Shah Rukh Khan, if I'm not. You've seen Shah Rukh Khan.
I've met Amitabh Bachchan.
No, Amitabh Bachchan.
Parker Pence.
Parker Pence.
Yeah, he used to be the brand ambassador, and he gave one random shot, and he came up to a whole bunch of giggling interns at the edge of the set and said, "How's the shot?" And we were like, "What?
Tall, towering, deep
Yeah,
voice.
is he talking to us?"
Yeah.
It was so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are the shots I get that I now watch on my big screen, and I'm obviously feeding the algorithms.
Are you shopping? Are you shopping online? Are you shopping through your TV as yet?
No.
Not yet?
No, not yet. I just watched this.
Do you think you're going to?
Do I? Of course I will. Yeah.
You would probably shop looking at what's happening on television and then shop on your phone.
I think so. Second
Yeah.
screen.
Which brings us to retail media.
Retail media,
What
which
do you
is the
think
next
about?
one.
What do you think about retail media? What's happening at ATS with retail media?
The narrative that I have seen from ATS is the fact that this is going down the same path as all other forms of media. It was the next big thing. It is the next big thing. Suddenly they're saying retail media is a hot area, but the numbers are getting jacked by outsized players like Amazon and Walmart. The consensus, big opportunity, but fragmentation is a problem. Standards don't exist for measurement. Ad nets and sales houses will aggregate. Agencies will launch their own internal retail media ad nets.
Oh my God, what a surprise.
Yeah. So the headline from FPC
So why do you think that we are moving so slowly on this? Because the next bastion of advertising, or the next frontier of advertising, is in-game advertising and gaming advertising. We're going to try and take over this virtual augmented reality world of advertising and try and figure out how to make it scale. There are a lot of players already that are doing DCO, which is dynamic creative optimization, insertion, and all of that jazz, which is happening. And there's going to be fragmentation there as well. But do you think, from a market perspective, it is required so that you can all go to your little corners and actually experiment on different things that you want to take a bet on? And then consolidation is inevitable because you will buy somebody else because they complete you, or they've become, they have specialized in a specific space and you specialize in the next. And, you and them together is a better offering.
Eric Seufert says everything is an ad network. Ben Thompson says, in the world of Web 2, aggregation is the way to win. If you control distribution, if you throttle the key distribution points, then you have win. And what does that result? What do both those theories result in? That there's always going to be 1, 2, or maybe 3 giant players. Look at telcos, it's true. Look at e-commerce, it's true. Look at big tech or media, it's true. Look at big AdTech, it's true. I don't know if Web3 is the solution to that, but it looks like in a Web2 world where there's just so much noise, aggregation seems to be key.
Yeah.
But that then follows the same pattern. There's a new market, you aggregate, the big players can skim off the top and have an advantage that nobody else has. Preferential attachment, I think it's called. Rich get richer.
Yes.
Big players always get bigger. They can take the bigger bets and get outsized returns. But I think somewhere in there is this same pattern. Effectively, the headline from these guys is the fact that retail media is complicated. It's hot, but it's complicated. But it seems to be following the same pattern. Remember that panel that we were on with DPP, where someone just said, every time somebody said something, he said, history repeats itself, history repeats itself, history repeats itself. And what he's basically trying to say is that history went down a certain way for a reason. Now, in theory, we all think that there's a different way, but history also went down those routes for the same reasons.
But I feel in Web3, I was trying to look for that article I sent you guys on Inc., which I'll put in the show notes later. Web3, I think, will move more towards, instead of product market fit, it's protocol fit. What protocol are you a part of? Like, what is at the base of your organization? Is it blockchain? Is it AI? What is that protocol that you're actually leveraging? And the other day I was talking to somebody over dinner, and they said that, the go-to-market for companies like ours is going to look very, very different in the future, because we'll have to associate ourselves with one of the large players as marketplace, whether it's the GCP marketplace or whether it's the AWS marketplace or the Azure marketplace or whoever else is the other, I don't know, Snowflake marketplace, whatever the marketplaces are that exist. But it'll have to be that way so that people, because you will ultimately go and leverage yourself on the backs of these giants. So it's a different way to do it now in Web3, I feel, because there's going to be a lot more, and the fact that AI is entering this space at this point in time is going to shake up a lot of things. In the short term, it's going to be more instruction led, but in the long term, it's going to change.
Prompt engineer is now a full-time job.
Exactly. This prompt engineer business, especially in the creative world, is now we are trying to figure out, who do we pay, or who do we not pay? Is the fact that,
what do you pay for?
Yeah, what do you pay for? So do you have to pay less because it's an AI actor that's actually generating this image? Or is it because it's under the instruction of a creative person that the AI vendor, so to speak, has been able to generate it in the first place? So you still have to give credit to the creative thought. And I mean, automatic generation of AI images, I'm assuming, how will it even work? It has to work on some instruction, some brief, something.
So our view of AI, I think, has to evolve as much as the technology itself. Right? Is it an enabler? Is it a replacement? Is it make things faster and therefore worth more money? Or is there less effort going into it, and therefore it's worth less money?
And so what does humanity do with this amazing amount of time that we're going to have on our hands?
Marc Andreessen wrote a long post last week. I haven't read it, but I was listening to a summary of it, and it's on my list to read. He's written 3 of these in the past. The first one was called Software is Eating the World.
Yes, it became a book.
Yeah. The second one was called It's Time to Build, which was somewhere around COVID. This is the third one. And so someone interviewed him on a podcast this week and said, this is a very, why did you write this? What was the Jerry Maguire moment that caused you to say, I've had enough, I'm going to write, right? I'm going to write my way out of this crisis. My
mission statement, yeah.
And one is, Marc Andreessen talks about the fact that he's written out of frustration because he thinks that everyone's going down some path and it's important to sort of jam the whole world into a different path. And this is that path. And the path is that AI can save the world, but he breaks it down. One is not calling it AI, but calling it augmented intelligence, because it's much like GitHub had done. It's actually a co-pilot. And if you start viewing it that way as an enabler, we will think about it very differently. 2 is he puts every generation of GPT on an IQ scale. So GPT-3 was maybe 80 to 90, GPT-4 is maybe 100 to 110, GPT-6 or 7 is going to be 150. And then I was midway through listening to it this morning. He talks about what that means. And he says, what is IQ? What is intelligence? And it's very, very philosophical, right? But he goes down that path and says, the aim of AI has always been assist, then be as good as human intelligence, and then be superior to human intelligence. That's AI, AGI, ASI, artificial super intelligence. And that's the scary stuff. That's Skynet, and that's the death of the human race and all of that. But a lot of the policymakers today, out of a panic are trying to make policy that is trying to prevent us from going there. But his whole view, his call is that we look at it very differently.
But if it's ultimately going to go there, then why stop it?
I don't know. I really don't know. But it was an interesting take, because he also talks about the fact that there's many things AI cannot do. From plunging a toilet
Yes.
to
building a chair.
There's many things that AI cannot do. So the whole relationship between us as a civilization and AI is basically what he's
Yeah,
questioning.
man, let's purge ourselves of these nonsensical jobs that we do that really don't leave any kind of feeling of fulfillment or legacy at all. I mean, legacy on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm excited about how AI will let's call it augmented intelligence, will co-pilot along with our lives. I'm excited how we can harness it. But currently, we're also grappling with what's happening with CTV. Anything on your list?
Yes, that's the next one. Do you have access to my list? CTV, but nothing of note in this update. It just says CTV is important as part of the wider addressable TV market, but it's still disjointed, and so execution is different.
Right. Chris Morocco, who's the CEO of the AdTech firm Beachfront Media, he basically says that if regulators crack down on IP addresses, that's
We were
going to be
talking about
a
this yesterday.
massive shift. And I was speaking you guys saying, hey, what happens there? And well, it's hard to mask IP, but what you do with it could be regulated. And if that does happen, then all of this household level hyperlocal information and data starts to look a little more like whole TV data, right? And then we go back to this old way of dealing with television. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that I am interacting with the largest screen in my house the same way as I was interacting with my phone, through apps and not appointment viewing, through VOD. Even if it is an episode that's dropped. Hey, you forgot to ask me that question.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yes,
even
yes,
if it's
yes,
an
yes, yes,
episode
yes.
that's
Yeah.
dropped every week, I'll still queue it up to watch it in order. If I'm not sitting there, appointment viewing is dead, except for live sport. Appointment viewing is dead. Maybe news, even that I don't know. I don't know whether people will actually sit down and watch the news. Maybe election news, like who's going to win the election. Something that is very momentary and maybe celebrated.
I
in
don't know
nature.
anyone in our generation that watches the news. My parents do. I'm sure your parents do, and I've seen them. I've seen your dad scream back at the
Yeah,
TV.
the TV, yes.
Yeah, that's a two-way interaction.
Yeah.
Same in my parents' household, but I think everybody else is just not going to watch the
So
news.
only live sports.
Live sport.
And live sports will probably go through its own transformation from live sports to esports and more local sports that are being played and transmitted onto the larger screen in your house.
I mean, I might be down for a Vision Pro where I attend a concert, attend a live event. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, yes. But like, you buy tickets for it and you show up for it. Yeah. So then therefore appointment viewing kind of thing. But habitually appointment viewing like we used to in the past obviously is dead and gone. That's been established and that genie's out of the bottle. It's never going to come back in. But I don't know whether we crack down on IP addresses or no, or whether we start to obfuscate data or no, or whatever else. The fundamental way of how we interact with this larger screen is changing. And advertising is going nowhere. That needs to change. And we need to be very cognizant and aware of that device on which this creative is actually being shown on, which I think some of our customers are also doing right now. We see it also in the Indian market, where there is a big shift in trying to identify where their users are actually watching this content and being able to serve them an experience from that brand that is suitable to that device environment. So I think that's something to look forward to, especially from CTV. It'll also go through its fair share of ups and downs. It'll get fragmented. There will be many companies who will come up and say, I will make CTV buying easier and consolidated. Some of them will group up together and make a larger company. Some of them will die. Some of them will just get replaced by a button on Google's DV360.
Yes.
So it'll be a journey that they'll make as well, just like the retail media space. Be born, fragment, become larger than life, consolidate, flatline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming back to that question, which I forgot to ask at the top of our episode, what are you watching this week?
So I'm watching Silo. Silo is a show that's on Apple. again, dystopian future. There is something eerie and horribly wrong as to why these people are in this massive silo.
Is there some AI that's driving the dystopia?
I mean, there's no AI, but there is it's all base humanity things and about just people sitting in this huge silo where they are kept away from the outside world, and they're not allowed to innovate. They're not allowed to do anything that is advanced in terms of technology. And so it's interesting to watch how this plays out. But it's like 8 or 9 episodes down, and we were discussing this last night. They're just not revealing the bad actor right now. It's just all over the place till the foundation is really sort of still being built of the show. But it's good. It's a good show. I like it because I get to watch it once a week. It's totally fine. But I binge watched this other thing called The Foundation. You seen it?
No.
Again on Apple. Yeah. I'm a sucker for anything space or dystopian future. And if the two mix, I am there with popcorn, right? So that's my list. What are you watching?
I just watched The Elephant Whisperers.
Nice.
Which wasn't your friend a part of the team that made it, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, really?
Yeah, you mentioned this.
Yeah.
It won an Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
Very, very nicely made. And I also finished watching Never Have I Ever, season 4.
God.
It's not dystopian. There's no AI. There's no bad actors. It's just trash.
Just trash.
It's just trash. I have a
teenager trash.
Yeah, I have. I have this, The Ranch, Sex Lives of College Girls.
Have you not finished Sex Lives of College Girls?
Finished. But
Okay.
I watch any of this. Yeah.
Mine are only. I think I'm old. I just like Friends and Seinfeld. And
I also watched Friends.
And I
last time.
realized I have a Pavlovian response to tudum. When tudum comes in, I'm like, oh yes, relax. Just relax. The world will be fine.
Yeah. Thinking about it.
Yeah.
The last thing out of ATS is, he says, we do bang on this very point in pretty much every newsletter ad nauseum. IDs will not save us. And so Kieran says, it is reassuring to hear it vindicated by smart industry leaders. IDs will play a minor role. Context and SDA will be heavily adopted. Context. How many times have we heard context? Now attention.
And seller-defined audiences, which is SDA.
Audiences.
Yeah.
The lack of ROI on over-compute, over-sophistication.
I think the reason why we're all dismissing or we are dismissive or reductive of context is because we are all stuck in the whole AdWords concept of context, right?
Which is just plain old tags in SEO.
Yeah. And then, you have this concentric rings of context where you have like a direct contextual relationship with what is being written about. And then you have a 1 degree, 2 degree, and then 10-degree version of how contextual your ad is to that content. But I feel like with all the technology that we have and the amount of information as human beings we have shared with technology as well, the ability for you to be contextual in a different way in terms of advertising becomes it's an interesting game to play now.
Yeah.
Instead of just being an American Express ad next to a golf tournament update, right? Because the assumption is the person who's reading about the golf tournament update plays golf and therefore is a golfer, and most golfers have money because it's a rich man's sport, and therefore American Express cards, which is, it's a very archaic way of thinking of it.
No, but it's such a cool example, right? Because on the one hand, you have this industry moving close to Amex next to a golf ad. A colleague of ours, Ravi, was on my flight when we went to Bombay. And he's applying for a European visa of some kind. And he basically said, I will give them anything they ask for just to get this visa. They want proof of my ownership, my property, my land. They want first-party data of any kind. They want my copies of this ID, that ID. He said, there is no filter. Because I want to go to Europe.
Yep.
That's it. That level of... And it's not even like he's doing that out of trust that they will expunge that data or they will shred it or... It's just, that's what it takes. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, but it's sad that it's us, right? We're a third world country.
Yeah.
The Americans just walk around with their passports and waltz into any country that they want to. And here we are like saying, take my first child's DNA and please give me my visa.
The Schengen visa.
Yeah. It's terrible. It is really terrible. But what are you going to do?
Yeah.
This is where we are at.
The first time I met Bharat from Sansara, he was on stage and his opening line was, "We think we want privacy, but we actually want security." And out of that confusion, we have forgotten what we are okay with and what we're not okay with. And this is a perfect example.
I use Digiyatra, man.
Yeah, I was
breeze.
with you at
It's
the
a
airport.
breeze. It's a breeze.
Yeah.
Even in the Delhi airport, it's a breeze. You just walk in, scans your face, says hello, Kavita Shenoy, and you walk in.
So first party data in exchange for convenience.
I don't understand
Yeah.
behind people. I mean,
Who are people?
Yeah, who are these people?
Why are they there?
Why are they there? Exactly. And I was so conditioned at this Delhi airport. I thought, man, everybody's got on this Digirata bandwagon. So I went and stood behind this big line of people outside, and then the security guy says, "Madam, udhar jao." And then there was nobody on the Digiyatra thing, and I like strutted up and just gave away
That's
my
it.
first
You're
party
now
data.
flying first class.
Yes. Of course, I went back into the same like hellhole as everybody else, but I felt
Yeah.
good for a moment there. It's going to
I should have
happen.
done it. I should. At least it would have helped the pukey experience of my flight. Go down.
There'll be some highlight.
I'm telling you, it's that seat. That middle row window seat is jinxed for me. Every time I sit there, I'm cornered by some drama next to me on the flight. The only other themes that I saw out of ATS were a focus on diversity and mental health, which is, I think, always
Sign
been
of our times.
our times and of the advertising and media industry
It's about time.
at large.
Yeah. The last one that I have on from Cannes is how AI will change TV ads.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still run of the mill. They're talking about DCO,
Yeah.
dynamic creative, optimization, dynamic creative, insertion, replacement, and stuff like that, which I think, that's a good place for AI to be.
Yeah.
But I still think that advertisement in general will need to change. They should not be transaction anymore. Google made it very easy for anybody to advertise. They even brought out their own display ad builder 10 years ago where people could just put in stuff into a 300 by 250 and create a JPEG and make sure that they're advertising. Then capturing of images became easier. Canva made it easier for us to actually create different images and buy different images. There's no longer, you didn't need to clip art or anything of that sort. But creating interesting television ads that really make human beings feel, emote, actually choose one brand over the other because of what they stand for is going to have a renaissance. It's going to come back in a different way. And that is exciting. That is not AI. That will be great storytelling.
AI is actually a very broad spectrum that I don't
Yeah.
even think, I've fully wrapped my own head around it.
This whole thing about AI just like wiping everything out and replacing everybody, like you're saying, it's a co-pilot. I mean, when people
but
moved
we-
from
we are
bromides
trained-
to CDs,
Huh.
right, in
Yeah.
terms of artworks, some people came back after, like I had this one colleague of mine in advertising who came back after maternity leave. And there was technology change. She's like, what do you mean you are submitting a CD? What is that? And where are our bromides for artworks? There are no more bromides.
Yeah.
So AI will become like that. It will become an enabler. It will become an enabler for us to be able to explore and be able to do things that you're otherwise constrained by. But I'm excited about that.
I was following the fact that AdTech God was at Cannes.
Here he's
Nobody knows who he is.
but he's setting up a podcast.
He is setting up a newsletter. He was on the Marketecture podcast, but he had like a muffled voice.
Oh my.
He was at Cannes and he'd like left his stickers in many places to show that he was there. But I don't think people know who he is just yet. He's a newsletter that I think drops.
But I think he
sometime
said
soon.
he's going to set up his own podcast. Or was
Podcast
that
as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah,
he's
he
going to
did,
have
he did, he
Terence
did.
as his. Didn't you go and say I'm okay? Oh, you signed up for the newsletter.
So we signed up for the newsletter. He's running a bunch of surveys that our colleagues have been helping fill out. I'm curious to know where this goes. He's always been a funny, tongue-in-cheek Twitter handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always gets the best responses.
Yes. Always. Jeff Green at Cannes said, never been a greater time to be in internet advertising.
Where have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so next year we're going to be at both this ATS London and Cannes.
Yeah, I have my
We're
shorts
gonna,
ready
like,
because
yes.
Santosh is already in
Yeah,
Cannes
he's
attire.
already in Canada right
Yeah.
now. And
We
it
should
was-
put ATS Singapore this year.
Yep.
Let's go. Let's get on a yacht.
I don't think they're going to have a yacht
No?
in Singapore. Please. It's not going to happen. They probably have us in a huge conference room. Chicken rice.
Chicken rice. Chicken rice is not meant to be eaten in a conference room.
Yeah, I know. At least we can get to do it.
Yeah. And I still don't know why every time I say chicken and rice, everybody's like, oh. That's not how you say it.
It says chicken rice, man.
Chicken rice.
It's not chicken
What
rice.
I liked more than chicken rice was
the mango and sticky rice.
The mango and
but that's
sticky
not
rice.
Thai. It's not Singaporean.
You ordered it in Singapore.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
For me, it's always the Singapore
that's true. That is true.
because there was a chicken shortage.
There was a
when we
chicken
were
shortage,
there.
and
Yeah.
everybody was
Which
going
everybody
nuts.
talked about. We went to customers' offices, we went to meetings, and the first thing people talked about was not
Like,
the weather,
oh my
not
God,
sport. It's like
there's a chicken shortage.
chicken
And then they
shortage.
had those ridiculous looking roosters around.
Yeah.
And like, why are they not eating these chickens? In their ability to make Singapore a little more friendly.
Anil will fit right in.
True.
Yeah. Don't order biryani from there. They don't use long rice. But they use long rice.
Hey, no, but Anil's statistic on biryani and his ability to measure is the meat to rice ratio. That is his that.
I don't know about that, but I do know that someone last year presented the fact that biryani has a TAM it's a totally addressable market for biryani in Bangalore. Someone actually computed it.
Yeah.
And you obviously
Actually, most of our food delivery partners, etc., have like large biryani companies who are national brands.
Yeah.
Like Beiro's and stuff like that. Anyway, speaking of biryani, it is Friday.
I might get some biryani.
Yes, carb load. And thank you everybody for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed the whole deliberation between Cannes and ATS. Everything is the same, but also different.
It's all the same. It's also different. History is repeating itself.
Everything
is progressing.
Everything. I don't know why we have this podcast. I mean, we just have to like repeat last year's podcast again. But yeah, we need a celebration. Yeah, if this is 1 year already, what do our listeners get?
I don't know, but
if they come to the office, they'll definitely get a drink for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Since
we
we're
have
on
to do
Church Street. Okay. Thank you everybody for listening, and thank you Anand and the rest of the team in the office, Santosh, Leena, and Gautam. Bye.